The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with the familiar mixture of disdain and amusement that always accompanied discussions of Earth. Ambassador Zektar of the Hegemony leaned back in his hover seat, his forearms gesticulating with theatrical flourish. 37 standard cycles, he announced to the assembled delegates, and not a single transmission from the humans. Not one plea for mercy, not one desperate offer of tribute. His mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among his species. They sit in their little corner of space pretending we don't exist. The Vorthak representative, a crystalline being whose thoughts manifested as shifting colors across her translucent form, pulsed with agreeable amber hues. My scouts report their orbital defenses remain laughably primitive. A handful of kinetic platforms and some fusion mines. They've made no attempt to modernize their fleet beyond those crude chemical rockets they're so fond of. Silence is the song of the defeated, chimed in the insectoid Zach delegate, his compound eyes glittering with malicious glee. We gave them terms. Surrender Earth's mineral wealth and submit to proper governance or face extermination. Their response, nothing, absolute silence. The Council had grown tired of waiting. 36 member species, each commanding fleets that could glass entire worlds, had offered humanity the chance to join their cosmic order. The terms were non-negotiable, as they always were. Submit, pay tribute, accept their place as a minor species under the guidance of their betters, or be removed from the equation entirely. But Earth had chosen a third option, silence. For 37 cycles, not a single human vessel had left their solar system. No ambassadors, no negotiators, no desperate last-minute appeals. Long-range sensors showed normal civilian traffic between their colonies on Mars and their industrial stations around Jupiter, but nothing that resembled military preparation. No massive shipyards, no weapons platforms, no signs of the frantic militarization that usually preceded a hopeless last stand. Perhaps they've simply accepted their fate, suggested the reptilian Sorak Prime, his scaled hide rippling with satisfaction. Some species know when they're beaten before the first shot is fired. Zektar's mandibles clicked again. Then it's time to collect our prize. Signal the fleet commanders. We move on Earth immediately. 100 ships should be more than sufficient to handle whatever pathetic resistance they might. The Council chamber's great display flickered to life, showing the real-time tactical overview of the Sol system. Every delegate fell silent as they processed what they were seeing. The space around Earth writhed with contact signatures. That's impossible, whispered the Vorthak ambassador, her crystal form cycling through confused purple hues. Our deep scouts reported nothing. No construction, no fleet movements, no— Run the count again, Zektar demanded, his forearms trembling slightly. The chamber's AI responded in its eternally neutral tone. Confirmed vessel count, 14,632 distinct signatures. Classification unknown. Configuration unknown. Technology basis unknown. The silence that followed was nothing like Earth silence. This was the silence of predators suddenly realizing they might be prey. On the tactical display, the human fleet began to move, not with the desperate, chaotic energy of a cornered animal, but with the cold precision of a clockwork mechanism built for a single purpose. The ships arranged themselves in perfect formations that no Galactic Council species had ever seen before. Geometric patterns that seemed to bend space itself, creating gravity wells and tidal forces that pulled asteroids into new orbits. Where did they come from? The question came from the Hegemony's military advisor, a grizzled veteran of a dozen conquest campaigns. The answer came not from the Council chamber, but from Earth itself. After 37 cycles of silence, humanity finally transmitted. The voice was calm, measured, and carried the weight of absolute certainty. You wanted to know why we didn't answer your ultimatum. The truth is, we were busy. While you bickered and postured and made your grand proclamations, we were working. Every human colony, every research station, every mining facility in our system dedicated to a single project. The display zoomed in on one of the human vessels. It was massive, easily dwarfing the largest Council dreadnoughts, but it wasn't built for intimidation. Every line spoke of ruthless efficiency, of form following function in ways that made experienced military minds deeply uncomfortable. You see, the human voice continued, we've been listening to your broadcast for over a century. We know how you operate. You find a species, offer them the choice between slavery and extinction, and then act surprised when they choose to fight. You've done this to 43 civilizations that we know of. You're very good at killing the desperate and the unprepared. The human fleet began to accelerate, not toward the Council's forces gathering at the system's edge, but toward something else entirely. The display shifted to show their destination, a hegemony listening post, one of dozens scattered throughout the galaxy to monitor primitive species. But we're not desperate, the voice said as the first human ship reached the outpost. There was no flash of weapons fire, no dramatic explosion. The listening post simply stopped. Every system, every signal, every sign of life ceased in the span of a heartbeat, and we're certainly not unprepared. Across the galaxy, every hegemony installation went dark simultaneously. Monitoring stations, supply depots, forward bases, all of them fell silent in perfect synchronization, as if someone had simply turned off a switch. The Vorthak ambassador's crystal form had gone completely black. How is this possible? Our outposts are spread across 12 sectors. Even with faster-than-light travel, it would take— You're thinking too small, the human voice interrupted, somehow tapping directly into the Council's communications. You see space as something to cross. We see it as something to fold. While you were busy being impressed with yourselves, we figured out how to be everywhere at once. The tactical display expanded, showing the entire galaxy. Thousands upon thousands of new contacts appeared simultaneously across every sector, controlled by the Council species. Human ships emerging from folded space with the precision of a surgical strike. Here's our counteroffer, the voice said. You have one standard day to withdraw all military forces to your home systems. Any ship, base, or installation found outside those boundaries after that deadline will be removed. Permanently. Zektar found his voice, though it came out as more of a croak. You can't possibly think you can take on the entire Galactic Council. We have billions of ships, trillions of soldiers. You had billions of ships, the human voice corrected gently. Would you like a demonstration of how many you have now? On the display, a Council patrol fleet of 300 vessels was approaching one of the human formations. The humans made no aggressive moves, sent no warnings. They simply waited. The Council fleet opened fire first, as humanity had known they would. Particle beams and plasma cannons lit up space with violent colors, all of them striking the human vessels directly, and doing absolutely nothing. The human ships didn't even seem to notice the attack. They continued their slow, patient approach as the Council vessels exhausted their weapons against shields that might as well have been solid neutronium. 43 civilizations, the human voice mused. 43 unique species with their own technologies, their own innovations, their own ways of seeing the universe. And you destroyed them all because you couldn't imagine that someone might have something to teach you. The human fleet reached the Council patrol. What happened next would be debated by xenoarchaeologists for generations to come. Because there were no survivors to provide first-hand accounts, the Council ships simply ceased to exist, not destroyed but unmade. Their component atoms neatly sorted and cataloged for future use. We spent 37 cycles studying every scrap of data about your wars, your conquests, your technologies. We spoke to the survivors of species you civilized. We learned from every mistake they made, incorporated every innovation you stole from them. The human voice paused, and in that silence, Council members across the galaxy felt something they hadn't experienced in centuries: fear. And then we built something better. The display showed human fleets moving through every sector, not conquering, but cleaning. Council installations disappeared with mechanical efficiency, their resources absorbed, their personnel offered a choice: surrender and be relocated, or share the fate of their infrastructure. You mocked our silence, the voice concluded. But silence isn't defeat. Sometimes it's just preparation. The age of the Galactic Council is over. What comes next? Well, that depends on how quickly you learn to listen. In the Council chamber, delegates who had commanded the deaths of trillions sat in stunned quiet, watching their empire dissolve in real time. Outside the viewports, human ships materialized in the space around the Council headquarters, not threatening, just present, waiting. The age of silence was over. The age of consequences had begun.